Kuzuzangpala, and a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on the time zone you are tuning in from. Sincere apologies for the delay in starting this webinar. We were having a bit of technical difficulties. Anyway, a warm welcome to this first webinar on building an inclusive workforce for our future, a conversation around special education and disability in the Bhutanese context. On behalf of the Bhutan Foundation, I would like to welcome the moderator, the distinguished panelists, and everyone in the audience. At the outset, let me mention that this webinar is a non-governmental platform, and it is organized to share the work of the foundation and our partners in special education and programs to enhance the lives of persons with disability. Through this conversation, we hope to listen, engage, and create greater awareness on disability, inclusion, shed light on experiences of their families, and to draw attention of policymakers and service providers. As we all know, Bhutan has made commendable progress in its commitment to pursue an inclusive education for all. And towards this vision, we have made several policy and institutional reform. The country has ratified to international policies such as Convention to the Rights of Persons with Disability. We have adopted special education policy in 2012. Standards for inclusive educations were set in 2017, and most recently, a national policy for persons with disability was adopted in 2019. Responding to, again, the need and the growing concern for persons with disability, the Ministry of Education started the first SEN school in 2002, and now it has expanded with 26 SEN schools in the country. From the limited research and data that's available, it shows that disability prevalence is about 2.1%, which is about 15,000 people, 15,000 plus persons with disability. And as per the annual education statistics of 2020, it shows more than 900 children with disabilities in the school. However, if we are to count the children with disability in our village, or even the young adults with disability sitting at home doing nothing, the numbers will be far higher. I would like to highlight some of the foundation's work. We have been working in this area since 2009. And in collaboration with Ministry of Education, we have been building the capacity of teachers through scholarships and bringing in international experts to train our teachers. While the number of SEN schools have expanded, there is need to adequately equip and resource these schools. And towards this, we are supporting adaptation of infrastructure, providing teaching learning materials, assistive tools, and equipment. And again, upon the request of Ministry of Education to expand choices and provide alternate pathways for children with disability, we are helping the SEN schools to institute functional or pre-vocational programs. The foundation will continue to work with multiple CSOs in improving services with CSOs like Phensem, which is a parent support group, improving vocational training for youth with disability and their transition to employment. You will hear more about these programs from the speakers shortly. With that, may I introduce our esteemed moderator, Dr. Namita Jacobs. She is the education specialist for the Asia Pacific region for Perkins International. Dr. Namita has extensive experience working with schools, hospitals, teachers, and parents for over 25 years, and she's not new to Bhutan and has been advising us on all our programs since 2016. With that, over to you, Dr. Namita.
Thank you, Ma'am Nobudema. It is a pleasure to be back in Bhutan. Although still sitting behind a computer and a screen, it is a great pleasure to be here in your country and to be at the same table addressing this really important topic. I represent Perkins International, an organization that works across the world supporting the development of services for people with disabilities, particularly focusing on children, building capacity of families, with the dream that we are able to better prepare children with complex disabilities to contribute and be true members of our society. Although systematic program that I've been involved with in Bhutan started much later, my first visit to Bhutan was far earlier, right around the time when the first disability survey results were still being compiled. And it was at the invitation of the ministry to answer the question, are we doing enough? Are we doing well enough in our SEN programs? Are we addressing the needs of children who have more complex disabilities? How do we know when children actually progress? And one of the big answers to the question, how do we know, is really, you know, when you see more people, more of your children graduate into adult life, being active participatory citizens, and this includes being a part of the workforce. It means less children out of school. It means more children seeing them, lasting through the school years. And it means an educational program that truly is responsive to the needs of students. So these have been our areas of focus. And today, the seminar really focuses on this idea of what are we doing already in Bhutan to address this really important topic, preparing students with complex disabilities to join society, to join the workforce. I'm very pleased to have sitting at this meeting with me three wonderful speakers, and I'm going to hand over to Sonam Yangden of Bhutan Foundation to introduce each one of them before we start our conversation. Sonam.
Thank you, Dr. Namita. It is my great pleasure to introduce our three panelists today. I would like to start by introducing Ms. Karma Sonam, who is a parent of a child with special needs and also the co-founder of Phensem Parent Support Group, a civil society organization in Bhutan. Phensem is a support group for parents and families who have children and persons with disabilities. The group aspires to create awareness about the abilities and the needs of children, advocate for positive change on challenges faced by parents, families, children, and persons with disabilities, and provide support to empower and work towards building an inclusive society. Next, we have Mr. Sonam Ura, who is the grant coordinator for a 3-year research project titled Inclusive Social Participation and Employment Opportunities for Youth with Disabilities in Bhutan. It is a project funded by the UK government, and Mr. Sonam is currently stationed at the Royal Thimphu College. Next, we have Ms. Pema Choden, who is the Deputy Chief Program Officer in the ECCD and Special Education Needs Division under the Ministry of Education. A very warm welcome to all the panelists once again. And also just to remind our viewers that if you have any questions, please write your questions on the chat box below, and we will have a Q&A session in which we will answer your questions. Thank you very much. Handing it back over to you, Dr. Namita.
Thank you, Sonam. So to begin our conversations, I'd like to actually ask our parent, Madam Karma Sonam. In our cultures all across Asia, I think there's an abiding belief that good parenting is about providing lifelong care. And it becomes then the major focus and the goal of all parents particularly when children have more complex impairment. Those that affect areas like comprehension, emotional control, social interaction, communication, mobility. Our instinct tends to be to provide care, to think about the future in terms of providing care. And as a result, your young child with disability is raised almost to a life of retirement. And people with disabilities that are more complex are not typically seen in the workforce. You are a parent yourself of a teenager. What do you feel about this? How do you approach this question?
Thank you, Dr. Namita, for the question, and thank you for this opportunity. Yes, rightly said, as parents who have children with disabilities, we have to take care of them. We have to provide them the support they need. But I think that is not just enough. Especially if you have a child with a disability or a person with disability in the family, we also need to look at the future of our children. And as parents, most of the time, one of our biggest fear is the question of what after us. And that question, that big question, somehow, in the course of our daily struggles and challenges, we tend to somehow, keep it at the dark or, push it aside, because we are grappling with the day-to-day challenges of bringing up our children and persons with disabilities. In addition, when we have children with disabilities, parents become overly protective. And so we do not look at the possibilities of our children, beyond of thinking about their independence, So that's why we feel, starting from home, we as family ourselves, we feel that, our child are not capable of doing anything on their own. So we become very protective and we start doing everything for them. And I think that is not a good approach. If we as family, as parents, if we fear that question of what after us, then we really have to think about the future of our children in a right way. That is, try not to make our children dependent as far as possible and start working from now, And we also, as parents, what we have is, some of us, we don't know about our child's condition or the disability. Or even if we know about it, we are ignorant. We do not, we don't want to, we are in denial. We do not want to accept that fact. So what happens is then, we want our child to perform the same way or learn the same way like the rest of the children who do not have disabilities. And, even compete with them or, compare with the rest of the children. And that puts a lot of pressure on the child and creates stress in the family. We also, as parents, sometimes we do not want to put that effort of, teaching and helping, our children. And because of the fact that we are too busy, we do not have the time, or we say, oh, we are not educated, we do not know how to do this. So we totally, completely rely on the services provided by the service providers. So in a way, we as parents, we are either overly protective or overly, ambitious, or we completely rely on others, that we forget that the proper support that is required for our children in order to give them a meaningful, independent life, So as parents, if you really want to see the change, we have to start from home. And as parents, we have to be the first person to believe in our children that they can be independent. Only then we can convince the others. So that's my
yes,
opinion.
absolutely. This idea of really believing, isn't it? That is the crux of everything. You have to believe that a person has the capacity to develop, the capacity to learn, provided the right opportunities. And that's the challenge to us. How do we, as service providers, as parents, as community members, how do we create this enabling environment? That's a really important point and one that we must hold in our mind. through this conversation. And on this note, I'd like to turn now to Sir Sonam Ura, because over the last 3 years, you've been conducting this research that is so rich, so across the length and breadth of the country, looking at a very multidimensional way at the status, where we find ourselves today, what has helped, what are the barriers. And I'm sure there are numerous things that you can share with us, but I'm particularly interested to hear about, people with more complex impairment. Are we seeing them working? Are we seeing them out participating in society? We always hear when we look for stories, or we, talk in different countries about this question, we often hear these stories of some spectacular capacity, a swimmer, an athlete, a musician, but not everyone has these talents. What we'd like to see, or we'd like to hear, is a person just having your everyday job in spite of having a complex impairment. And I'm just wondering, did you find this? Could you share some of this with us, some of your findings about this with us?
Thank you, Dr. Namita. Our research study had been very extensive for the last 3 years, and we had covered quite a number of areas that we are still working on, and we already have in the place most of the cases like education or in the employment status, because there are policies that are already aligned to that inclusion. What we have looked at is more of in terms of employment and the work related. We looked at almost 200 plus young adults with disabilities, and we found that more than 60% of them are involved in a very meaningful activities in their communities. But unfortunately, I must say that the study that we did with 200 plus youth revealed that almost 68% does not work for any pay. So that means it's activity that they perform, but they do not earn at all throughout of it. So we can say around 30% makes living out of what they do. In context to what you have asked, especially in terms of complex disabilities and their probability or their opportunities in the work world, we did discover that there are quite a few who are already working in it, or in a way participating or contributing in a meaningful way towards the community. So it could be simply like helping the farming activity, cleaning a temple, farming activity, probably cleaning a community temple. So these are the meaningful activities that they are involved, but then this does not really turn into monetary terms or any full-time employment. So this is what we have discovered. To share you some examples, probably not because they are already there, but we did have some intervention programs in the middle of the project. So we try to help some of them figure out how they can build their own employment, or how they can sort of become more independent on their own. So probably I would like to share you a story. We do have a very young, energetic gentleman from Dagana, a place called Gesseling, quite a remote place to be honest. He is born with physical impairments, and it's very difficult for him. He did his higher secondary education. However, he was not able to get any employment because of his disabilities. And he had been actively looking for employment when we met him. After we started working with him, we suggested whether he would be interested in developing some form of a self-employment or an independent way of living, which his families were very much supporting. They are encouraging him to become more independent. So in that way, we were able to set up a very small print shop for him. And that really sort of changed his life, because he found his own self-employment. At the same time, he also found his own independent life. So today he is trying to diversify his business, his enterprise, and he's trying to see how he can make a little different out of it. Similarly, we do have a couple of stories like that. I would be very doing not of a justice if I don't share with everyone the story that we have in Eastern Bhutan. Though the gentleman we have in Eastern Bhutan is visually impaired, not completely, but partially. When we met him, his parents were quite in a form of marginalized, sort of a living economically disadvantaged, more of like in poverty. But after we use the same idea that we use in Tagana in his context, he was able to sort of start the print shop and then start running his enterprise. And today he's the sole owner for the whole family. So that's something that quite inspiring for us. And I think this is something that has really made quite an impact when it comes to the work for the opportunities for the people with disabilities or youth with the disabilities.
Thank you. I really, it kind of goes back to the comment that Madam Karma Sonam just made, which is, it really is about having expectations, but also about providing the right supports. So, you know, just having the capacity is not really adequate. You still need to have the active support. In this case, it was your willingness to help invest in or help him set up or start up a small enterprise. And that one action has yielded a big positive change in a person's life.
Yeah. On other hand, I would like to share that generally what sort of employment or work they are involved is in more contexts, more of a vocation. So they are either in the art or craft, which are provided by the institutes like Drakso and special needy schools. So these organizations provide them some form of a sheltered employment, I think, to some context. So in this way, these people with, or the children with disabilities, especially in the complex disabilities case, I think these are the employment opportunities or the work they are mostly involved in. But unfortunately, we do not see most of the youth with disabilities, even with the higher education qualification, doing any sort of full-time or very meaningful employment here in Bhutan right now.
Yeah, that's really something to reflect on. And I'm going to turn to Madam Pema Choden from the ministry, because this really also, we need to look back to the earlier times, isn't it? When we have to look back at preparation. And I'm curious to see where MOE comes in supporting this development of work opportunities for people with disabilities, because we do want an inclusive society, one that has a healthy diversity of capacity in work. So, Madam Pema, could I ask you to talk to us a little bit about this?
Thank you. Kuzuzambo, and greetings to everyone who is watching and listening to this webinar. I'd like to first acknowledge Bhutan Foundations and the Perkins International for coming up with this and having us here for this talk. Well, it's very imperative to identify, to see the abilities in children and persons with disabilities. So if we pick the abilities and enhance it with the right support and systems in place, then it will be, we will be able to actualize the true potential of the children or persons with disabilities, and which will in fact contribute back to the community in their own capacity and potential. So which will also enhance their work opportunities and independent living in their life. So therefore, I would say that when we talk about work opportunities for persons with disabilities or children with disabilities, the position of MOE, Ministry of Education, I would say that it more comes in the process of readying our children with disabilities for the work opportunities in their life. So as I believe that preparing students for workforce is an important role for the schools as well, instead of just preparing for the grades or colleges. So if we are preparing them for just the grades or the colleges, then we are in fact overshadowing their actual workforce readiness in their life. So as a process of readying for work opportunities, I would say that our schools, since our schools with SEN program, or since our teachers, school management in the school with SEN program, they do the recognition, not just in SEN program, but it also applies to other school, general schools as well, though about trying to pick on the abilities of their children. But however, specifically to talk about our program, our SEN team, special education team with special education coordinators and the special education teachers, they do recognize, they do try to pick on the abilities and aptitude of the children with disabilities, and they try to develop the individualized educational plan, which is the roadmap for their life. So they develop individualized education plan for that students, involving the parents, the subject teachers, special education team, and then they provide like functional curriculum, and also they provide pre-vocational programs at times. So for now, and our schools, they also plan for transitioning the children with disabilities from at various levels, like maybe from program to program, class to class, school to school, and also we facilitate the transition of students from school to after school as well. For instance, in 2022, we have our schools like Changanka, they have transitioned about 7 children with disabilities to Drakso Vocational Training Center. And similar to that one, even the Mongar MSS, to give some examples, like they have transitioned one student to the skilling program in tailoring. So similarly, and they also transitioned about 2 students to painting schools. So like that, we have been facilitating students, although we have the documents in place, but then we are trying to establish the system. So we are trying to go that way. And our schools, to prepare our children, I'm mentioning this because like these are all the ways towards making our children prepare for their life, which is the work opportunities. Our teachers and schools also liaise with the community and the business entities, and then they also try to facilitate the internship for students, and then so they prepare for the work opportunities in life. And they also create awareness. The school also try to create awareness. Maybe they grab an opportunity wherever possible, maybe during even parent-teachers meeting. So they create awareness, and then they try to get the support of the community, support of the parents to support children with disabilities find their way in life. So this is it. And we are also in the process. We have TVET curriculum also, and Ministry of Education though, but we are also in the process of specifically for students with disabilities, schools with SEN program, wherein we also have an activity planned to develop the pre-vocational program framework, which doctor knows very well. We are also in conversation about that one. So these are some of the things that we are doing, and that we are trying to do, that we are having in plan, and all these are readying our children for their life. I would say so. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Pema. As you can see, there are numerous programs, numerous possibilities that school education can bring. And perhaps this is the point at which we need to stop and reflect on this idea of what it actually means to prepare young children to become, teenagers and then young adults ready to join a workforce. Is it just a bunch of skills? Is work only about making money? What is our concept of having somebody contribute, right? And if we have that clarity, then really looking at an educational program, a technical, vocational, and educational training program, looking at all these, an entrepreneur training program, looking at all these programs, looking at the special education needs program, looking at opportunities within a school day or within a school curriculum, it becomes possible then to infuse all these structures with actual practice, really leading children to grow up, all children, to grow up into citizens who want to give back, who feel they have the capacity to give back, who have a culture, a certain ethic of working. There are so many elements to preparation that isn't just about developing a skill or developing a certain set of knowledge. And so really one of the strong practices or strong policies within the educational plan as laid out by the Ministry of Education is that you can start right at your entry point into school and infuse a child's educational experience with multiple opportunities to develop these diverse things that come together to define or to develop an adult who is going to join the workforce and be a contributor. This strength is also an area of concern or confusion, because as you said, as you rightly pointed out, we need to clothe these things with action. We've been working at Perkins International very closely with Mongar, for example, Mongar Middle Secondary School, for example, and many of the students you mentioned are students we've worked very closely with, helping develop an idea, helping develop a system to identify what is the student's interest, what is the student's strength, and then working together to figure out how do we prepare the student toward a future that they would value, they would desire, they and their family. And one of our big challenges is really bringing all these pieces together. A family needs to support the idea. All the teachers need to be on board. The community needs to be open. It's only when all these things happen that all the efforts that are poured into working with the student actually can yield a positive outcome. So a lot of our effort and a lot of our conversations are around the student, and we forget that all the things around the student too need to be built. This is a big challenge that we face, and particularly without a family's engagement, enthusiasm, belief, as Madam Karma Sonam was saying, being able to let go of some of your fears, placing the child at the center of everything that you plan. These are all such actually hugely challenging things to address. So I'd like to ask you, Madam Karma Sonam, could you talk to us? Would you mind sharing with us about the shift in your mind as a parent? When you started, when did you and how did you and why did you actually make this shift from all I can think about is protecting and become this parent who says, I need to support my son to move toward his future? Could you talk about that a little bit for us?
Sure, Namita. Actually, it started in August 2020, when due to the pandemic, there was a lockdown. Schools were closed, online classes were going on. And I think that was the time when Phensem, for the first time, carried out a transition planning exercise with support from Bhutan Foundation and Perkins International. And Doctor, you know very well. We started this transition planning exercise with 7 families to begin with, who had children with disabilities, diverse disabilities. And me and my family were one of the families undergoing that exercise. And I should say that that transition planning exercise was a reality check for us as a family. And that's where we seriously started thinking that we need to, work towards thinking and planning for the adult life for our son. Because by then, our son was already going in, reaching his teens. So now with that visual planning process through that exercise, it helped us to put our perspectives in place. And also, it gives us a clearer focus where we need to head towards. So in that process, when I understood what it really meant, and gave me that shift of thought and acceptance, we found that this exercise was very useful actually, especially for families, to give a clearer direction, to give a sense of, a roadmap for what my child or persons with disability, should be living his life or her life with as. So Phensem, again with Bhutan Foundation and Perkins International, carried out another transition exercise, transition planning exercise, with our partner school teachers, to help the teachers carry out the same exercises with the families who bring their children to the schools. And then Phensem then realized that we also have parents who have very young children, who have not started school yet, or who are going to transition to school. I mean, ECCDs for that matter, and also older children who are not going to school, who are just sitting at home, and parents are directionless of, what am I supposed to do with my son or with my daughter. So we thought that we should upscale this a bit more. So in October 2021, we have started on a journey of a 2-year project, and the project name is called Positive Future Planning. And Doctor, you also know this very well because you're very closely involved in this. And we are working with the families now. But the objective of this project is, our focus is to train and certify our local facilitators, who we have got from volunteers. We have teachers, we have parents, we have youths who are volunteering to become these local facilitators. So hopefully they get certified by the end of the 2nd year. And the objective is also that in future, these local facilitators can carry out this positive future planning for our families, and we do not have to rely on outside expertise for this. So currently, we have about 12 facilitators working with 6 families right now, but very soon we'll be taking another set of families. So we are working on this.
Yeah, this is really exciting, and I'm so proud and happy to see the progress that has been made. We, in our vision, back, who knows when we had our first discussions with the ministry, we had said to them that in order to have the education system be truly effective in preparing children with complex needs, you have to start really early. And you have to start working with families, you have to support them and encourage them to send their children into slightly larger and larger big world situations. And we work very closely with HEJO ECCD to sort of think out loud, what does this actually look like? How does it work within the Bhutanese context? And from ECCD to transition into school, what is that planning process actually entail? What does transition support truly need to look like? Because it really is, it's hard at a large system level to make these, to be able to see these things. Because you are asking the professional who is, let's say, trained in ECCD and is in that box to stretch out into the next box, which is school age. And from, a school teacher to stretch out beyond the years of their responsibility to ensure that actual handover happens into the next stage. So it is a matter of great pride to see a lot of these projects not just yield benefits to the children and families and programs that we work with, but also to see programs within Bhutan take it on and totally, shape it to suit the need of the moment. And this is something wonderful. We cannot make reasonable plans, effective plans for children with disabilities without the involvement and the guidance of families. So the support from Phensem has been really very important to us. Madam Pema, just reflecting on what Sir Sonam Ura and Ma'am Karma Sonam has said, is there anything else you would like to speak about what MOE is doing to make it possible for children with complex disabilities to grow up and to join our society as contributing, participating adults?
Well, thank you, Doctor, for your questions. To support children with disabilities, including children with complex disabilities, Ministry of Education has taken a number of steps or plannings. If I mention some, that we have developed very important documents which guides us in supporting children with disabilities. So we are involved in formulation of policy directives and guidelines. So in the we have in line to that one, we have first, as Madam Nurbudema already pointed out in her opening remarks, we have standards for inclusive education, which is developed in 2017. So there, that is the tool. That's a tool to support schools in our country towards becoming inclusive, more inclusive towards children with disabilities. So although we aspire all our schools to become inclusive, but we have now formally identified about 26, including Ongsel Institute for the Deaf and Munseling Institute for Visual Impairment. So we use that one, standards for inclusive education in those schools, which basically looks after the policy, practices, and culture of the schools towards becoming more inclusive. So secondly, we have come up with the guidelines on assessment, examination, promotion, and transition of students with disabilities, which was in 2018. So that is a document that guides us for assessment, for promotion, for examination of transition of the students with disabilities, which is endorsed by the Curriculum and Technical Advisory Board. So here it talks about alternative pathways and programs for students with disabilities. We understand that some students with disabilities may be able to participate in general curriculum fully, some may not be, some may be partially able to access, and some may not be able to fully access the general curriculum that we have. So therefore we have alternative pathways, like we give extended learning time for students who opt to take general curriculum, but who needs extended time to access that. And we also have functional learning, selective and functional learning programs. And the next is technical and vocational educational program that we have. So these are some of the alternative pathways that are there in the assessment, examination, promotion, transition guidelines. And we are, although for technical, for TVET programs, we are in the initial stage of implementing that one. We are in the process, although we have for general students, yet it is accessible for students with disabilities as well. If they want to get into that one, it's open for them. But it's also mentioned in there that we can have for special education program as well. So those students who are not able to access that TVET curriculum, mainstream TVET curriculum, then we have plans to plans to develop the framework for pre-vocational program for students with disabilities. And we have thirdly 10-year roadmap for this program, which guides us. There we have 4 major goals: the cross-cutting organizational goals through ECCD, we have school years goals, and after school years goals. And in total, we have about 30 goals. Everything that we do, the program that we do, is aligned to that one, and all that directs, or it goes towards supporting children with disabilities. So this is it. We also work on capacity development of the teachers, besides providing assistive technology and mobilizing resources and coordination with the Dzongkap's and Thomdes to develop inclusive infrastructure in the schools. So this is it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Pema Choden. It really is a very comprehensive. I've had the pleasure of being able to give a response or feedback on the 10-year plan when it was first being pulled together, and it really is. It's such a comprehensive, well laid out thought process. But Sir Sonam Ura, I'm sure you are very familiar with all that's available in Bhutan through the policies and structures that are already in place. Now, after your years of research, and all that you've gathered, what do you think are the biggest changes that need to happen?
Thank you, Dr. Namita. Before I answer your question, I would like to make a short comment on what Karma and Dr. Namita shared about the parenting support that needs to be given to the children with difficulties. As per our research, we discovered that we have around 66% of the participants who responded saying that they were really encouraged by their parents to participate in social activities, in any other meaningful activities, or even in the context of helping their families to do all sorts of whatever work they can be able to do it. And what I felt was, when we look at this result, it's a big shift for us, because for quite long we had been going through sort of social stigma, where the children with disabilities were not given opportunity or encouraged to participate in the social circle, in the social activities, or forget about the employment or the work. So it's quite heartening to know that there's a lot of parents willing to now come forward, support their children, and then make them more independent and then contribute more meaningfully. So that's something that is quite a big shift that we are seeing now. And I think with more advocacy like this, what we are doing today, I think it would continue to build better future for us. Going back to your question, I think there are a few changes that are very necessary now if we are to implement and then put into action what we had been always discussing. I've attended over the last 3 years quite an amount of advocacy programs, seminars, workshops, meetings on special need education and for the people or for the persons with disabilities. So over the period of last 3 years, I have discovered that we had a lot to share, a lot to talk about, but then what are the actions that are we really taking? And I think there are a lot of things happening right now, and I think we need to really enhance that. So I'm going to put it into 4 points. Number one, for sure, it's the education. I think the education really needs to enhance the current system that is there. Currently, we are still focused more into very didactic, cognitive development sort of educational approach, not just for the children with disabilities, but even for the general children. And I think it requires now more to enhance that system and then create more of, in context of especially children with special need. I think there needs to be person-centered learning or planning that must happen. Then there needs to be work-based learning in the schools, not necessarily always on the literacy part, on the curriculum that we already have in the place. And the most important part that we discovered during our study is the school to work transition, which is one of the most important components that we still miss in the education system. One obvious example that I can share with you is Wangsel Institute for Deaf. There are a lot of students coming out of the institute, and the problem with them is now they do not have that transition plan, and they have no idea how to go about once they are out of the school. Number one, the basic problem is the communication. How do they communicate with the world outside the school? Because they are very used to the sign language within the school. So this is something that really needs. Similarly, even for children studying at doctoral institutes for vocational training, I think there needs to be a very strong school to work transition plans and programs so that when these children are phased out from the institutes, they know very well where to go and how to live independently. I think these are the challenges that we see in the education right now. Number two is with technical and vocational education. I think we need to now design and conceive it as an inclusive opportunity for all. Currently, technical and vocational educations are not accessible for children or young adults with disabilities. And as we did this study, we discovered that there are more adults with disabilities with the vocational training who get more employed or working than others. Number three, I think it's the advocacy like this that really needs to go out, even for the private firms who are willing to employ adults with disabilities. They have no idea that they can do customized employment, they can have sheltered employment. So they do not really have an idea how to go about it. But if we create more advocacy programs like this, I think it's going to really benefit. And we discovered through one of our advocacy programs that we conducted in 2020, we had a lot of private companies, corporations, big organizations, financial institutions coming forward and saying that they are willing to employ youth with disabilities and they are willing to create customized employment system in their institutions. So this is the third point that I would like to share. And finally, we do have a national policy for persons with disabilities. And I think the policy itself is very clear how things needs to be done and what can be done. But I think the other policies across the board does not really align or does not really integrate with the national policy for persons with disabilities. So there is a lot of bottlenecks everywhere. And so I think we need to clear those bottlenecks. And then slowly, if the policies really become strong and then able to create that sort of an environment, I'm sure the social norms, the social barriers are going to slowly lift up. That's the change that we probably see.
Yeah, thank you. That was really well put, very well summarized. And I'm smiling to myself and feeling very pleased with myself at this point, because we've spent a year at the invitation of the Ministry of Education at Mongar MSS, doing many things that you have just spoken about. We placed a teacher there for an entire year from Perkins International, and we tried to, we started the year by running person-centered planning programs with the family, with the teachers involved, developing individualized plans, infusing it into their curriculum, implementing it both at home and school, and where relevant in the community. And we really, really wanted to be able to take the students through and finish that last step, transition into work with adequate support, because we know that people with disabilities need to learn within the real context of how, where they are going to perform their task. So we wanted, and I think that there is that level of awareness in the ministry, within the schools, and within the systems in general, that there needs to be this better sort of match between policy and practice, between all the various policies that are in place. So this was our testing ground, but of course so it would be wonderful really to have an opportunity to see this through. We hope this is the year where we will have that opportunity, and perhaps some good practice elements will emerge from that as well. The challenge, of course, was that we picked the most wonderful year, 2020, when everything was in lockdown, to implement this. So it's been a bit challenging, but we've been so pleased with being able to demonstrate what could be possible. I also want to say that this kind of webinar, this idea that Bhutan Foundation has had to bring key stakeholders together is essential, because this is how we open the dialogue. This is how we make things more available to people who we may not have an opportunity to otherwise have directly interacted with. And what we will try to do with each of the topics in each of the webinars is to follow up with a master class where we can in a more detailed way share successful practices with others who may be interested to learn. Before I wrap up, my last question today is back to the parents in our group, Madam Karma Sonam, who also is one of the co-founders of Phensem, and therefore has been working very closely with a range of families. I would like to ask you, what is your shout out to the citizens of Bhutan? What can the citizens do today? Not the experts, not the policymakers, but just the everyday people. What do you have that you would like them? What do you have to suggest to them? What change would you like to see happen?
Thank you, Dr. Namita. As a parent, I think what I can say is what we would like to see is in the community or in the society is to be more supportive to our children rather than just showing sympathy. And looking at our children's ability more than their disability. I think Madam Pema Choden just covered that. And also to be aware and believe that persons with disabilities can be independent if you've provided the right kind of environment for them. Also the fact that most people think that our children cannot do many of the works that any other children can do. But that is not the case, given the capacity and the skills, and given the right kind of support, which Sir Sonam Ura just mentioned, the right kind of support and opportunities are given to them to explore, they can do it. But right now, when you look at the training and skills that are given to persons with disabilities, it's really confined to just, tailoring, baking, arts and crafts and things like that. But skills beyond those are not explored for persons with disabilities, particularly in the field of IT, programming, designing, even white collar jobs, in the regular offices and corporations. Now there are some initiatives that have been taken, and I think more should be done. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and I think it has to be accelerated. And lastly, I'd like to close by saying that we as parents and society in general, when we immediately see a child, when we have a child with a disability or persons with disability, we often think that, they cannot do anything, or, they cannot think for themselves. So we quickly, it's, I think, our human nature, automatically we become, like I said earlier, very protective and all those things, that we decide and kind of dictate, how they should live their life, how they should function, and, how they should align to the system and structure. But we forget that to put the child or the person in the center and see what would they like to do, or how would they like to live their lives, So we forget to give their preferences a priority. And this is what Phensem's project, that positive future planning that I just spoke about, looks at that and helps family to see through that lens, and advocate at the same time into looking at our children and persons with disabilities' strengths, abilities, interests and values, so that, we can help in building a very independent, productive and independent future for them in the best possible way, and to the extent possible. So I think we always have to remember that, and I think that came very strongly from, I think, Sir Karma Ura as well, and I think that is the right approach.
Thank you. That's a marvelous note with which to end, a message with which to end this webinar. I'd like, before we turn over, I can see many questions that have come, and I need to take a moment to look at it. But before that, I just wanted to wrap up by saying, I'm amazed. I realize suddenly that we are at such an important juncture in services in Bhutan. We are at a point of hope where there are policies in place, where there is interest among families and among employers, among the government, the implementers, the community at large. There is an interest, there is a desire to actually see this change take place. So it really is a place of hope and a point at which we could dive in and make a real difference. Surely there is a reason to dive in, because a lot remains to be done. As Sonam Ura pointed out, there really is a lot that remains. Transitions, it is tragic to bring a person up to a point of possibility and then the end. There is nothing to help that last mile. to realize that having a little support to get you off the ground to a job could make the difference between you living in poverty or living in frustration of not being able to contribute. And, instead, with this little contribution, being able to be an equal participant, and sometimes the support of your entire family rests on you. So really, it is a very important and exciting time. And I hope that we capitalize on all this interest that we generate in order to be able to really move forward with an energy to see maybe within this year that we are able to demonstrate some of the practices that we've only so far been able to talk about. I'd like to open the floor to questions. Sonam, do we have time for questions? Yes? Okay. Oh my goodness, wow, there really are a lot of questions. All right, let me start. A question to Mr. Sonam Ura. Your research is interesting. As a result of your exposure to this research, have the practices in RTC changed?
Well, I must say yes. RTC until 2019 was not very inclusive higher education, but since 2019 we have already taken on board about 3 young adults with disabilities. We have Mr. Sangedoji, we have Mr. Vikash, and the other guy, I can't really remember his name. They are here on campus, they are doing their undergrad courses, and we are in the process of making it more inclusive. Initially, our idea was to bring on a student with the hearing impairment or deafness. But the problem was we do not have the adequate resource, especially in terms of faculty members being able to convey or teach using the sign language. Yeah. So we could not really do that. But then we were able to annually bring for last 3 years a student who has some form of disability or difficulty and make it more inclusive. As we go on, we are also working with these 3 individuals. It's not that they are just here in the college and studying what they are actually studying. We work on person-centered planning. So we are working on what would be their transition from college. And we are trying to really use whatever expertise that we have, whatever knowledge we have with them so that they would be able to at least find a way, independent living way when they graduate out of the college. For quite long, we have someone with the role of school transition coordinator for the project. And this person had been actively engaged with all 3 students with disabilities at the college, really trying to work with them and see how they can make it life more meaningful in the college, at the same time also prepare for life after the college.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Sonam. There's a question to Phensem asking, is your work Thimphu-centric? How do you reach out, or do you reach out to families in the rural areas particularly?
Okay, thank you for raising that question from the viewers. Yes, Phensem, I think not many people know, but we are a newly, registered CSO. We were registered only in 2020, and we started off with just families from Thimphu. And so maximum number of our parents are based in Thimphu, but we also have parents from other districts as well. So our future objectives or our plan is to create Phensem chapters in as far as possible in every Dzongkhag, hopefully. But we want to do that, and our approach is to first advocate the families themselves there first, because they are the best persons to know what the real issues are, because they live there and they, you know, experiences the hardships there. So so we want them to, you know, help them create their own group over there, so that we in here based in Thimphu can mentor them and guide them to help establish these parents group and link them up with us. So that is our intention, and we do hope that we can do that. Currently, in small ways, we try to help if possible. If there is any reach out to us, we always try to, you know, cater to their needs. Just to give an example, one of my other co-founder, she was contacted by a parent in Tashigang, somewhere in rural, and I think his child also has a cerebral palsy. So she was asked how we could help the parent, because they were really suffering in terms of, you know, because they did not know how to take care of a child with CP. And my friend, she being a mother of a child with CP with a lot of experience, she took that effort of, you know, reaching him out.
Yeah.
So that is how we try to do.
Yeah. Thank you. That sounds really sensible to, you know, really reach out and develop the capacity of families within the same locality, because everything is in our countries so local, isn't it? The issues are, the solutions are, the support systems, barriers, everything is very specific often to these areas. And yet, you know, as parents, there will be things that you can share that are common concerns and common solutions. Ma'am Pema, there is a question for you. Are there any plans for opening daycare facilities for special needs children who are at preschool age? I have seen many parents of such children leave jobs as they don't have anyone to look after their children as they go to office, and most daycare centers are not disabled friendly.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I would say there's a good news. Like we have Changanka MSS campus. We have inclusive ECCD center coming up in there. So that would be a start. Although all the ECCD centers that we have in our country, we aspire to be inclusive of children with disabilities, and even in the 10-year roadmap that we have goals for ECCD, and there we have in there, we have plans to have our ECCDs to be inclusive.
Yeah, I think we have some examples, at least in Bhutan. We work with Hejo ECCD. I know Changanka is gearing up to provide ECCD services as well. We hope that in our work with Bhutan Foundation that we really will be able to reach more and more ECCDs, because we've seen firsthand of the really big difference that it made, both to the families, to the students themselves, and to the institutions or the schools that were then accepting children with disability. So truly something that we hope to see in the future. The truth is that education must start early. Support services must be wider than a classroom. You know, systems do have to have that flexibility in order for that ultimate goal that all our children will grow up prepared and supported through the system to be contributors in this country.
The one that
sorry,
doctor. The one that is coming up in Changanka is going to be the Model Inclusive ECCD Center. Additionally, I want to say that.
Right. I think we are nearly out of time. Am I right, Sonam? I'd like to hand back then to Madam Nobudema to close this webinar. Yes, so Sonam Ura, please go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, because we did quite an extensive work for last 3 years, and if anyone out there in the audience who are interested in knowing the outcome of what we have studied or researched on the young adults with disabilities in Bhutan, you are free to contact us, and probably we'll also make all the publications available through Bhutan Foundation as well.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that was a very interesting and exciting conversation we had. In closing this webinar, once again, I would like to thank all the wonderful speakers and moderator, to the audiences for this very engaging session. And I join in echoing what the speakers have mentioned, restating that our children with disability have great potentials to become independent and productive members of the society, provided again they receive sustained support and enabling environment as they navigate their life. So efforts for inclusion or services for children with disability, I feel like it goes beyond just developing a social system to protect the vulnerables, but it has an economic case of why inclusion of persons with disability in our workforce and employment is important. So the journey towards an inclusive workforce and a society starts early on in a child's life at home, continuing to schools and in our community. So something for us to, again, like I am stuck with a lot of questions again, something for us to ponder over as, again, circling back to the question that Dr. Namita asked at the beginning of the webinar. As individual, parent, educator, or policymakers, and more importantly, collectively, are we doing enough? Can we or should we be doing more to change the trajectory of the child's life? In the coming months, we will be bringing more such webinars on the topic around inclusion and work opportunities for children with disability. And I hope you will join us then. If you are interested to know further about our work, or even Karma Ura's research work, or about Phensem, I think we will have the web links on our screen soon. Thank you and Tashdele.